Just a few days ago, I released a video talking about a Marvel Rivals controversy where the couch activists on Twitter and Reddit expressed their anger at Black Cat being added to Marvel Rivals, saying that she's too attractive, she's too well endowed, despite the fact that the devs clearly made her lore accurate to her comics. It's literally no different than comic Black Cat. That's a whole separate video. If you missed that one and want that full context, I'll link it in the description for you. But here we are now, a mere 3 days later, and we have another pathetic Rivals controversy from the same sort of crowd that brought you the last one. Yes, the online virtue signalers have struck again. As now we have this streamer Jules going somewhat viral in Rivals Twitter for making a take that's just actually absurd, actually delusional. Here's the context. First of all, this person, Skyvora, says, "There's way too much toxicity in Rivals, and especially towards the support players. It's really, really weird how the community sees and treats support players, and this is only getting worse. For those that don't play Rivals, support, also known as strategist in-game, is essentially the healer role, and there's consistently been lots of criticism that strategists get in-game from the player base. For example, for most of Marvel Rivals' lifespan so far, strategists have had really overpowered ults that are easy to charge up, and they just drag the games out, especially in triple support metas, but not exclusively to them. Certain strategist characters also have extremely low skill floors, which result in players with bad mechanics just padding numbers, and some would argue that many of the top strategists in-game have actually gotten carried by their Duelist and Vanguard teammates, the former being the DPS role and the latter being the tank role. Now look, this is not the case for all strategists. There are strategist players out there that have great mechanics, great game sense, great skill, to put it simply. This is just a brief generalization to get people in the loop if they're not familiar with Rivals as much as some of you might be. And so with all that context, that takes us to this response. The one that I mentioned is going somewhat viral now in Rivals Twitter from this streamer Jules. And Jules says in response to Skavora, whose tweet we read a moment ago, "Supports are seen as feminine, so there is an inherent hatred towards them. People demand attention from them because they see the role as submissive. So when they defend themselves from a traditionally masculine role, they lose their sense of control and get mad." In this essay, oh gosh, you made an essay about this? Okay, thankfully the essay part's a joke. Actually had me for a second there. Well played on that. But unfortunately, the rest of the post is not a joke. As a matter of fact, Jules is so serious about this, that when people began to criticize and call her out, she actually locked the responses entirely, as you can see right here. She also went on to advertise her Twitch stream. You can see the bio reading, "Hi, I'm Jules. She, her, a queer Colombian / Salvadoran who balances work and play." Now look, sure, you can argue that supports, that healers are seen as a more feminine role in games. But that in of itself is not a problem. That's not misogyny. That's not offensive. If you're offended by that, that's a you problem. This part's also just a really bad take, saying that people demand attention from strategists because they see the role as submissive. That is actually so horrible of a point. I can't believe she even said that. No, the reason people want attention from their healer is because they need healing. What are you talking about here? Oh, they just want attention from us because it's submissive. No, they need healing. They're dying. Your partners are dying. They need your attention because they need heals. A rival streamer, Necros, would actually respond to this post as well. Let's take a look at what Necros has to say. If you're not familiar with Necros, he is one of the most watched Rivals streamers, and he says, in response to Jules, "People drawing comparisons like this to sexism / politics are genuinely insane. The characters are just annoying to deal with and have access to very easy tools to deal with problems in their games like dive, but they refuse to get good at using them. The devs then have to compensate for their lack of skill through buffs, further reducing their skill floor, leading to favored matchups against characters that are supposed to counter them lol. This is why people have a, quote, inherent hatred towards the support role. It's quite literally because they whine and get what they want. It has nothing to do with frickin' sexism. That is an insane line of thinking." Yeah, that Jules person is probably a top poster over on the Rivals Queens subreddit. Oh, great. Now Jules is all mad at Necros. Let's take a look at her response. "You can't deny that strategists and supports in general across games are treated poorly by other roles. I gave my perspective on it as a social scientist." Oh, gosh. That doesn't help your argument at all. Hey, as a social scientist, I'm saying this, so I must be right. Like, no, it's not how this works. As a matter of fact, you could argue it's a logical fallacy. And if you didn't agree, you didn't have to respond. Makes a public whiny statement gets criticism, locks replies, gets quote tweeted, excuse me, and is now like, you didn't have to say anything. I'm a victim, blah, blah, blah. If you or others are triggered by this, that's a red flag. Bro, people responding to your bad take doesn't mean they're triggered. That's just called discourse. That's called being an adult, having a conversation. You're the one that's like locking down responses and getting all offended at people pointing out facts. You know what? Maybe we needed Concord after all. Maybe Concord should have stayed around. People like Jules should go over to Concord. That game was made for them. That game was made for people like Jules. At the very least, perhaps we can meet in the middle. Jules, I kindly request that you quit Rivals and go play Overwatch. They'd love to have you over there. Over on the Rivals subreddit, Jules' post would also get discussed 2 hours ago. This hitting the front page, already with 222 upvotes, titled, "People hate on duelist mains all the time, but when supports get hate, it's misogyny." A top response reading, "That's like saying that supports were racist towards Black Panther. I mean, some were because it's a black character in an online game, but it's a blanket generalization. I get that they want to play their favorite characters, but don't water down real issues because you can't play a main healer." I think the point that person is making is that Black Panther, being a notorious dive character that recently got buffed, is perhaps getting banned by support players nowadays, and that obviously that doesn't make them racist. So conversely, no strategist player should turn around and act like it's misogyny if their favorite strategist character gets banned during the ban phase, which now is also increased from 2 to 3, and we're seeing a lot of support bans in Season 7 so far, which is a whole separate issue, but also somewhat related to everything we've been discussing so far in this video. But I don't know if I want to go explain all of that for people that are not playing Rivals. It might be a bit too much to unpack here at the end. On that note, the final thing we'll take a look at is this post that's also going viral in Rival circles right now, talking about a new Marvel Rival support strike, because yeah, that was a thing before. Just know that context. So this guy says, "Marvel Rival support strike starts today. We will not waver. The support Discord will be under this post. You are not alone. Them sweaty incel DPS players will feel the absence of us. For safety reasons, DM me for the Discord link. We shall not be silenced." And then he says, "The support community has heard your cries, and we are very sorry that we used an AI-generated photo on this app," referring to this one. So he says, "We're sorry we used that photo on this app that is ran by AI and is funding genocide. Which by using the app, you're basically cool with using AI and Elon Musk as well. But here's the new non-AI banner." This is obvious bait. This is obvious bait, but a lot of people are falling for this. It got 1.8 million impressions. There's so many people quote tweeting this and responding. Now, to be fair, it was much less obvious bait when it was just the first and second post. And so like the second one's the one that really got a lot of replies and bait a lot of people. But now that he made this third one as well, I really hope no one's falling for this. This is like very clear bait. Unfortunately, there are people responding to the third one and they're actually not realizing it's bait, which is kind of crazy. Like this one, for example, is calling that dude dumb, but it's like, bro, that's bait. Come on. How do you not notice that's bait? But yeah, that's the latest. I'll leave this one here. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.